While it might be a bit of a stretch to talk about this, there's a potential for a God of War game to be coming out this year, and apparently it's been in development at Santa Monica Studios. So, for those of us that aren't already aware of the God of War series, basically the original franchise spawned from the original the original release of the PS2, where God of War 1 came out, up to the release of God of War. What's the last one that came out that was part of like the Greek stuff? I think it might have been Ascension on the PS3. That might have been the last, release, not counting re-releases of the original games, Ghost of Sparta and Chains of Olympus. But after that, God of War had a nice long break, and we got the return of Kratos in the form of God of War 2018. And in 2024, we got... It's not 2024. In 2022, we got the release. Or was it 2021? Actually, that's a good point. When did Ragnarok actually come out? Hold on, let me just go. God of War Ragnarok. I did spell that wrong. 2020. So I was right. Okay, cool. So 2018, we get God of War 2018. In 2022, we get God of War Ragnarok. Now, originally, we were told that God of War 2018 and God of War Ragnarok would in fact be a duology. There would not be any more games in this Nordic franchise element part of God of War. So, with a new game in development at Santa Monica Studios, with a potential for it to come out sometime this year, timing-wise it works out, because if you really think about it, 2018, 2022, but the next game, if I were to follow the same pattern, would be 2026, potentially. But basically, all of this comes down from the fact that PlayStation job listing suggested that a new God of War game was in development. PlayStation is currently hiring for a quest designer to join Santa Monica Studios, so we can at least derive from that it's a potential that Santa Monica is in fact the ones working on that game. And one of the requirements was that the candidate must have a personal understanding of the God of War games. All of it put together from that singular job listing just feels a little bit too perfect, if you know what I mean. But basically, nothing had actually been confirmed, and in fact, the Ragnarok in particular ended up receiving a pretty cool update in the form of the roguelike mode that it ultimately ended up getting. So I suppose, all things considered, if there's a potential that it could come out sometime this year, if not next year, it'll be cool to see. But we'll have to wait for everything to be announced. Again, this is all purely just speculation and rumor floating in the rumor mill. So basically, all of this information is just based off of a job listing. Is there much credence to it? Not really, until we actually get something of actual consequence. But it does actually bring in an interesting idea, or an interesting thought rather. God of War originally tackled Greek mythology for a significant majority of the God of War franchise. Only these last two games did we end up touching Nordic mythology. So the question then becomes, where can God of War go now? Is it going to be is like the next God of War going to be based in another mythology? Is there a potential for it to return to Greek mythology? Because we have to rule out the fact that we are not dealing with Nordic mythology anymore, largely because of the fact of what was discussed from the director of God of War Ragnarok and God of War 2018. Both directors of the game did say that it was going to be a duology at best, so we really don't know where things might go, all things considered. So this was something new. This is something new that actually came up. So it said here in this article, initially Alika claimed the original God of War trilogy was going to be remastered, with an announcement set for February. And of course it did fail to come to fruition, because February has since passed. It is now March, as of me recording this, near the end of March basically, and nothing official has been announced. Journalist and insider Jeff Grubb claimed the original leaker jumped the gun, and that an announcement would occur around the same time as the 20th anniversary celebration in March. Now, worth keeping in mind, but the original God of War PS2 release was 22nd of March 2005. So as of me recording this, that was 20 years ago yesterday, because I'm recording this on the 23rd, but I'm kind of ahead of time in terms of time zone, so let's not get a little bit too sort of into that. But basically, yeah, we have now passed the 20th anniversary of the original God of War, which actually makes me feel very, very old, all things considered. So yeah, with an eye out for the 20th anniversary, nothing yet has been announced. Maybe it might happen tomorrow, maybe we might find out later on, but we won't know for certain until the time passes. And the fact of the matter is that 22nd just so happened to land on a weekend of all things, a Saturday, so to speak. So it'll be interesting to see when Monday comes whether or not something will actually be announced. I'm looking forward to if they do announce the original God of War trilogy, but I feel like if they're going to announce that, I hope that they can go the full mile and actually release a full God of War Greek saga, effectively. Like a full-on re-release of God of War 1, God of War 2, God of War 3, God of War Ghosts of Sparta, God of War Chains of Olympus, God of War Ascension. Release every single God of War game from PS2, PSP, and PS3 in a single collection. I feel like that is the equivalent of basically what Xbox ended up getting with the Halo Master Chief Collection. It's basically the entire saga from beginning to end. And that would be absolutely amazing if they could release that. Without a shadow of a doubt, it's definitely something that would be worth the $70 asking price. Not just because of the game's qualities, but depending on how it's brought forward, it might be worth more, but I'm not going to really go into that. The thing is that you're buying like, what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 games in like $70. That evens out to a little over $10 per game, but honestly, when you really think about it, seems like a pretty good bargain, and especially if it has a physical release. But that's me kind of going a little bit too out of the way. That is the dream scenario. Of course, no way in hell is that actually going to happen. As much as I would like it to, it's been very rare where the gaming industry has actually done something that players would actually want. For a potential release of every single game that takes place in the Greek saga of God of War would be absolutely amazing, but we'll have to wait and see how things go on that area. But I think this last paragraph is actually pretty prudent as well. As rumors continue to circulate, Santa Monica Studios let fans down lightly by confirming that there would be no major announcements during the event. While it was bad news for fans eagerly awaiting the remastered God of War collection, the recent job listing suggests the studio is potentially working on something related to the franchise. For now, however, it remains unclear if the open position is related to the rumored remasters, a new game, or something completely different. It could very well be a DLC. That's another thing that could be completely just off the wall that could make sense. With 4 years between God of War and God of War Ragnarok, fans may still have a few years left to go until a new game is in their hands. And that's, I guess, where I was kind of getting at with 2018, 2022. Is there a potential we could get something in 2026? Extremely unlikely now that I'm looking at this article and like being like, okay, the job listing was actually a more recent thing and not a thing from before, and so that's why this whole discussion is happening and why we're now looking at potentially trying to extrapolate if there's a new game, what's going to happen. Is it possible for them to really, go back to the original Greek saga, or the potential of there being not just a new game that takes place in a different myth altogether that has nothing to do with Nordic myth, because we know that is going to be left behind moving forward, but also whether or not they are going to be working on also potential DLC for existing games. Again, anything and everything is completely up in the air. The options are available, so I'm interested to hear what you guys have to say about this in the comments below. Honestly, like I said, what I would love the most is for a full-on Greek saga collection to be released. But that is incredibly unlikely, and that is me living in Disneyland, me living in Dreamland, and hoping for the best for this franchise to release an entire collection for $70, 6 games on the PS5 with some updates, because the games have not aged particularly well, especially since they're PS2, PSP, and PS3 games of all things. But hey, that's just me kind of thinking aloud and trying to share my thoughts with you, and I'd like you guys to share your thoughts with me, please, in the comments below. Let me know what you guys think about all of this in the comments below. Like the video if you liked it, subscribe to the channel. I'm aiming for 500 subs by the end of the year, and with all that being said, I do upload every day, so I'll see you guys tomorrow.